The cartographer hesitated. For a moment, her stylus hovered mid-air, a pixel of starlight flickering beneath the transparent display. She was the best the Velari had. Traced stars with perfect memory. Lived 100 years and never once left a sector unnamed. But today, her hand refused to move. The room was quiet. The map stretched before her, sector by sector, world by world dot until it reached the edge. The black zone, unlabeled, unclaimed, uncharted, human space. Someone whispered behind her. She turned. Slowly, eyes wide. I didn't say stop, the assistant blinked. You didn't have to. The map stopped itself, not because of protocol, because of fear. In the Senate of Light, High Arbiter Calyx tapped the table with 3 fingers. Why is this still blank? He asked. The screen displayed the latest iteration of the galaxies. Trade map. 1/3 of it was silent. No traffic routes. No probes. Just a black scar across the stars. I asked for clarity. Calyx growled. A senator from the Outer Rim responded cautiously. We've sent diplomats, scouts, merchant runners. Not one has returned with usable data. Some didn't return at all. Calyx's eyes narrowed. So send a fleet. Another senator shook her head. We did. 30 years ago. Calyx laughed bitterly. That myth again. She stared back. My son was on it. Silence. He cleared his throat. Then explain what happened. She did. In 6 words. They crossed the border. Then vanished. Back in the archives, the cartographer tried again. Zoomed in. Her screen glitche. No data errors. No virus. Just refusal. It wasn't blocked. It was ignored. Coordinates that couldn't stay locked. Star names that slid off the interface like oil. She whispered to herself, why can't we draw them? A voice answered from the doorway. Because the map knows what we forgot. She turned sharply. An old human stood there, wrapped in the blue robes of an observer. Not supposed to speak. Not supposed to interfere. You're not allowed to be here, she said. I was invited, he said softly. By the Gap. She laughed nervously. By the what? The part of space you keep avoiding, the screen blinked. Then folded in on itself. Everything west of Sector 19 dissolved. Why? She demanded. Why won't the data hold? He stepped closer. You ever wonder why humans stopped expanding? She blinked. You won the silence wars. You could have taken half the rim. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes, because we found the edge of what we were willing to become. She didn't understand. Then why does everyone stop at your borders? Because they've seen what's beyond them. On a mining ship near the threshold of the Terran Divide, an inexperienced pilot decided to take a shortcut. 4 minutes into human territory, the ship received a message, not a warning. A question. Did you mean to come here? The ship turned itself around. The pilot didn't touch the controls. When asked later, he said only this. The ship made the decision before I could. Calyx called an emergency session. We're afraid of ghosts, he spat. That's what. This is legends, whispered threats. We rule 400 systems, and we tremble at the thought of Earth? An ancient archivist raised her voice. They don't threaten us. They don't speak. That's why it works. He slammed his hand on the table. Then we force speech. He pointed at the map, declared the zone open. Across 1,000 systems, maps updated. The black space turned gray. A name appeared on. The border, pulsing faintly, recognition revoked. Calyx smiled. See? Nothing. Then the lights went out. Every system on the core server went dark. Backup systems refused to boot. Every screen displayed the same phrase. We never said you could look. He stood, trembling. I thought the lights returned. The map was restored, but the gray was black again. And now In the middle of human space, a single symbol appeared, a blinking. ... Not a fleet, not a warning. Just a voice recording. Old, cold, human. We didn't ask for silence. You taught it to us, so now we listen harder than you speak. The map shut itself down. And no one redrew it. Because now the border didn't end. It simply stopped. And no one asked why. Because some questions didn't echo. They answered. Back. The trader's name was Raven Kale, and he'd made his living flying closer to forbidden lines than anyone dared admit. He wasn't stupid, just greedy. And greed, like most addictions, needed justification. It's just empty space, he told his co-pilot. Old myths. Darker roots, that's all. The co-pilot, a young Velari named Tin, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. We're 6 minutes from the mark. That's closer than anyone's flown in a generation, Raven smirked. Exactly. Which means we get there first. Tin checked the nav board again. The outer edge of human space shimmered across their screen like static, not coded, not colored. Just unstable. No trade stations, no buoys, no gravity locks. It's like nothing wants to live here. Raven adjusted course. Not nothing, just not us. The ship crossed the invisible line at 0300 Terran Standard. No alarms. No resistance. And no welcome. But immediately, without so much as a scan pulse, everything changed. Why did the nav go blank? Tin asked. Raven checked. It didn't. The ship's maps were still functional. Only now the stars were rearranged. The constellations were gone. Familiar lights were in wrong places. Some stars were too bright, others too close. Tin swallowed hard. Space doesn't move like that. Raven didn't respond. His eyes were on something outside the viewport. A structure. Impossible in shape, blacker than vacuum. It wasn't orbiting anything. It just was, like it had always been there, like it was the center of a truth no one should have touched. Is that a relay? Raven muttered. It's watching us. Tin whispered. The ship's external lights began blinking, not in warning, but in rhythm. Not theirs. There's one blink. 2. Pause. 1, 3, 1. Tin's voice cracked. Is it signaling? Raven shook his head slowly. No, it's counting. Counting what? Raven blinked. Us. They didn't speak for the next 40 seconds. Not because of fear, because of the weight. In the air. Something had shifted, not in the hull. In them, Raven's fingers hovered over the return sequence, but it was too late. The ship spoke. In their own voice. Raven's voice. You knew this was wrong. You told yourself the map was a lie. But deep down, you hoped it wasn't. Tin lunged for the power cutoff. The controls didn't respond. Raven stared at the viewport. The structure was gone. Now replaced by a mirror, not reflective. Reactive. It showed them, but not as they were. As they would be. Tin, dead. Raven older, alone, speaking to nothing. I don't want to see this. Tin whimpered, but the image didn't care. The screens all changed at once. One message burned into the system, repeating across every surface. The map stops here for a reason, Raven shouted, slamming the console. I get it. We crossed the line. We'll leave. The message didn't change. Tin backed against the wall. There's no exit vector, no jump lines. It's like we're... He didn't finish because the ship did it for him. You were inside the part of the story you ignored. A transmission flared to life. Old, grainy, human dialect. A woman's voice. Tired, stern. We made the galaxy a map. You rejected it. We offered peace. You mocked it. We gave warnings. You redrew them. So we left you to your silence. Another beat. Then, But silence isn't absence. Raven fell into his chair. Staring, breathing, sweating. Tinn was curled up on the floor, whispering numbers. "We have to go back," Raven said. The ship didn't agree. The return course was gone. The only path available led forward, toward black. Deeper. Into human space. But something else had appeared now, something more frightening than the structure. The voices, the predictions. A single dot on the radar. Not moving. Not broadcasting. Just waiting. Human ship, unknown. IFF, null status. AWAK. The ship opened a new window. Feet only. And they saw it. It wasn't large. It wasn't fast. It was simple. Crude. Even. No obvious weapons. No emblems. No crew signatures, but it was pointed directly at them. Raven whispered, "Why isn't it firing?" Tin answered, voice shaking, "Because we're not a threat. We're an example." And the screen changed again. Final phrase. Final warning. We never erased the map. You just stopped believing we meant it. The transmission cut. The feed died. The stars corrected themselves, and the ship found itself not at the border, but on the same path they came from. As if they'd never left. No. Time had passed. No systems broken, except one thing. Tin was gone. No trace. No sound. Not even a heat shadow. Raven flew in silence, never spoke of it again, but when asked why the map stopped where it did, he answered the same every time. "Because that's where the galaxy ends," he'd say, then lean in, and something older begins. He never flew past the line again, and no one who heard him ever tried. The memorial was small. No statues. No flags. Just a single screen bolted to the side of a decommissioned trade relay. Floating quietly at the edge of Sector 19. It played a loop. No audio. Just faces. Pilots. Scientists. Diplomats. All of them lost crossing into human space. And beneath it footage, a message in 6 galactic tongues. They weren't killed. They were remembered differently. That's what terrified the rest of the galaxy. Not the silence. Not the vanishing. The redefinition. Captain Arrogance of the Arkan Dominion had never cared for superstition. She wore war medals like teeth, and once flew through a collapsing black star to retrieve a lost dreadnought core, and lived. She didn't fear humans, because she didn't believe they still existed. "Ghost tech," she muttered, staring out at the empty reach from her cruisers. Bridge. Automated defense systems. Myths wrapped in nostalgia. The lieutenant beside her kept his voice low. "With respect, Captain, that ghost tech made the Varnal fleet disappear without impact." Arrogance didn't flinch. They probably vanished because they relied on stories instead of science. She turned to the comms officer. "Send the probe." The probe launched clean. Smooth glide across the border into the UNMAPPED. It pulsed data every second. Clear. Stable. Until it didn single quotes T. 3 minutes in. The feed didn't cut. It looped. Not playback. A live recursive stream of its own footage. Screen showed the probe. Watching itself. The engineers froze. One whispered, "Why is it filming the rear panel?" Another chimed in, "It's reading its own make tag, like it's checking who made it." Eric stepped forward. The probe's final message displayed. "Who gave you the right to look?" The signal died. No detonation. No hijack. Just absence. Eric clenched her jaw. "Deploy long-range scan." The officer hesitated. "Captain, the Accords?" "Do it." The scan fired. A cone of raw data burst into the black and struck nothing. Not silence. Not error. Something worse. Redirection. The scan beam twisted. Not physically. In record. Sensors showed it bending mid-flight like the data had developed. Intention. Are we being spoofed? Eric's asked. The tech's hands shook. No, the scan's rewriting itself as it travels. The data returned. Unreadable. Then translated itself. The crew watched as a sentence scrawled itself across the primary viewport. We already scanned you. The AI on board, VOK-17, flickered once. Then again. Then powered down. Eric shouted. Reboot it. No response, the engineer said. It's not dead. It just opted out. Opted out of what? The viewport dimmed. Another message appeared. Your AI understood the answer. That's why it left. Eric's whispered. That's not communication. That's theater. The weapons officer muttered, No, that's a warning dressed as manners. A new signal pinged from deep within human. Space. Unmarked. Unclaimed. It wasn't approaching. It was showing itself. Single human vessel. Designation unknown. No shields up. No threats made. Just transmitting its location like a lighthouse with no need for fog. Air IX raised a hand. Load weapons. The crew obeyed, slowly. She stared at the .UNMOVING, unworried. This ends now. The instant targeting systems activated. Every screen went white for exactly 4 seconds. When the visuals returned, the ship was still there. But now facing them. No movement had been recorded. No propulsion signatures detected. Just facing them. Someone whispered. It blinked. Eric's eyes narrowed. What did you say? Not turned. Not shifted. Just blinked. The human ship's lights flared. 3 pulses. Red. White. Then black. The COM screen opened on its own. No video. Just sound. A human voice. Hoarse and tired. This is not a boundary. This is a scar. You keep asking why the map stops. Here. The real question is why you ever thought it should continue. Eric snapped. Shut it down. Cut comes. But the message didn't end. It got closer. She wasn't hearing it through the ship anymore. It was inside her headset. Inside. The command link. Inside the backup records. The voice was everywhere. You don't cross into human space. You cross into memory. And memory is not a thing that forgives. The transmission cut. The screens cleared. All systems functional. Everything appeared. Normal. Except one thing. The star field had changed. All familiar constellations were gone. The crew confirmed it. They weren't in Dominion space anymore. They weren't in charted space, and they hadn't moved. Eric's whispered, Then where are we? The sensor tech's voice cracked. Somewhere they wanted us to see. Back at Central Command, Eric's report was flagged as corrupted. The audio was intact, but every video feed had been overwritten with the same image, a still of her own ship. From outside, from an angle impossible to reach, labeled, We were patient. Now, we're just accurate. The map updated itself again, this time without input, without permission. The border around human space pulsed red, then faded to black. Then something new appeared. A ring, small, silent, encircling. Human space. Labeled only, listening. And it wasn't a warning. It was a reminder that the galaxy had always been speaking. But only one species had the nerve to listen harder than it spoke. And now, they were done listening. They remembered everything. And drew the map accordingly. Happened without a single shot fired, not an explosion, not a war, not even a public declaration, just one quiet decision, made simultaneously across more than 100 star systems. Every cartographer in the galaxy deleted the same coordinates. Not under command, not by pressure. By instinct, because something in them, something old and buried, whispered, Stop drawing. And they listened. In the shadow halls of the Dominion Core archive, a technician named Varen was the last to update the master map. She wasn't military, wasn't a politician, Just someone who'd drawn stars since childhood. Her screen flashed once, then locked. Coordinates blinked out. Human space turned black. Again. A message appeared. Short. Brutal. You were warned. Varen leaned back. Eh? Tear rolled down her cheek and she didn't know why. I didn't mean to, she whispered. The map didn't care. It simply went still. As if it had been breathing. And now was holding its breath. At the center of human space. Far beyond charted corridors and dead relay stations, sat the ship. Not large. Not armed. Not even moving. But its presence stretched far beyond light years. It listened in ways no one else could. And finally, it spoke. A single transmission, multi-layered, timed perfectly. No encryption. No flourish. Just clarity. This galaxy has always been about lines. Lines drawn by conquest, by ego, by fear. You all asked why our space was left blank. But we never left it blank. We drew it in silence. The Galactic Accord scrambled for a response. Meetings flared. Factions argued. Academies rewrote protocols overnight. What do you do with an enemy who doesn't attack? What do you do with a boundary enforced not by fleets, but by memory? Some wanted war. Others surrender. A few suggested diplomacy, but no one could agree. On one thing, who exactly were they negotiating with? Because no leader of Earth had stepped forward. No declaration came from Terran Command. No face. No voice. No representative. Just decisions. From ships with no names. From silences that acted like answers. On the fringe world of Sear Delta, a rookie patrol ship spotted something strange. A child's drawing, etched into the side of a cum tower. Stick figures, crude stars, and a thick, black line scribbled through half the sky. Written beneath in messy, panicked common. They don't forgive forgetting. It wasn't vandalism. It was evidence. The boy who drew it had never left the planet, had never even seen a human. He just woke up one morning and started drawing. His mother said his eyes weren't his for 3 minutes after. She never spoke to interviewers again. The final incident came quietly. The Talvari Alliance sent a stealth probe into the center of human space. 5th generation. Cloak.pulse-DMPENERS. Quantum ghost threading. It reached its destination perfectly. Until it looked. Not with radar. With intent. It scanned the stars, and the stars noticed. And for exactly 4 seconds, the probe recorded something. One thing. An old Terran phrase, carved into what looked like a canyon wall floating in empty space. We stopped speaking because you stopped listening. The feed cut. The probe rebooted mid-transit and found itself back where it started. With one change. Its time code was 600 years ahead. The galaxy collectively chose to stop asking questions after that. No memorials. No treaties. Just quiet. Trade. Routes curved around human space without comment. Education programs quietly removed the history of the Terran Wars. Children learned only that the map had boundaries. They were never told why. And that was the point. Because silence wasn't just absence. It was dominion. Somewhere deep in the black, a human stood in front of a console, weathered, alone. He wore no rank. No insignia. He didn't speak, but the ship around him did. Every 10 seconds, it pinged a new signal into the stars, not to be heard. To be remembered. Each pulse was a name, not a person, a planet, a time, a moment when someone crossed the line, not to attack, just to look. And the signal recorded it. That was enough. That was always enough. Back on Varen's archive station, she received one final update. A new icon on the star map. Small, red, faintly pulsing, hovering just outside human territory. She clicked it. Only one phrase appeared. We didn't win. We just decided not to lose." She stared at the screen for a long time. Then, quietly, she stood, walked to the master terminal, and disabled the galactic map, for good, and somewhere in the dark. A ship blinked out, a memory settled, a silence deepened, and no one ever redrew the stars again.